The Democrats are absolute hypocrites. All along, they've been supporting walls and supporting fences and supporting all sorts of border security.
Illegal immigration is wrong, plain and simple.
I voted numerous times when I was a senator to spend money to build a barrier to try to prevent illegal immigrants from coming in.
We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked.
The fact is, they've always supported fences and walls and partitions, but you know what? They only don't want to do it because of me. They have to put the people ahead of politics. We need to have the wall. We need border security. Whatever it takes to get border security, I will do it. I pledged that a long time ago, and I will pledge it always. We've done a really fantastic job with what we have. We can do an almost perfect job if we have the wall and proper border security. And that's what we're going to do for the American people. Thank you.
This is what the US-Mexico border used to look like. And in many places, this is what it looks like today.
We're going to build a wall. It will get built.
I think it's just become an obsession.
But that obsession actually didn't start with Donald Trump. Why do US politicians seem so fixated on this border? And who really built all these barriers? Much of the US-Mexican border runs in straight lines. But in Texas, it suddenly gets very curvy. That's because the border runs along the Rio Grande River. Such as here, between Piedras Negras in Mexico and Eagle Pass in the US. This bridge is the official border crossing. Along the river, you see these colorful rectangles. They're shipping containers, a makeshift border wall. And those are Texas National Guard troops at the border. All that is meant to deter undocumented immigrants trying to cross the river into the US. The state of Texas took these measures. And Donald Trump is a fan.
Texas has done an amazing job.
Eagle Pass is just one extreme example on a 3,000-kilometer-long border. Elsewhere, it looks like this, or this, or this. And by the way, all US territory bordering Mexico used to be part of Mexico less than 200 years ago. But that's another story.
Back here in Naco, Arizona, we are once again witnessing smugglers sending migrants over the wall. Right now, you can still see a ladder up here on top of this wall, and you can see where the wire is completely cut through, and that's where they are sent over using a rope. And then when they reach the ground, they instantly start running. They run off into the brush. Hey, ¿tienes más migrantes aquí? Todo? Okay, he says he's done sending migrants over, but we are continuing to watch several groups down the way. What we witnessed here, within just 7 minutes, we saw more than 12 people sent over the wall and run into the brush. So what we can tell you right now is the Border Patrol chief saying that 385,000 people have successfully evaded law enforcement since October 1st. He says there are an additional 10 to 20% of those people that are unaccounted for.
Today, it's one of the busiest borders in the world. These are the spots to cross legally. But in recent years, millions of people have crossed the border illegally, fleeing poverty and violence in Latin America and beyond.
Here in Washington, a landmark $118 billion bipartisan plan to tighten the southern border and help pay for the war in Ukraine has collapsed. And tonight, there's little sense and little hope that Congress can find a new way to respond to either crisis. CBS's Scott MacFarlane has the fallout of a frantic 72 hours of dysfunction on Capitol Hill.
As migrants continue to cross, Congress is frozen in place.
It shows how broken Washington, D.C. is.
A U.S. Senate plan to stiffen border security, tighten requirements for asylum, and nearly shutter the border during spikes of migrant crossings had the endorsement of Senate leaders and a National Border Patrol union.
My Republican colleagues changed their minds. Turns out they want all talk and no action.
The motion is not agreed
But it
to.
collapsed in a vote late today, in part because former President Trump opposed it.
Americans are ticked off that this is not resolved.
The impasse is a blow also to cities like Chicago, where Alderman Byron Sitcho Lopez is helping the city respond to thousands of migrants bust from the border.
The federal government has exacerbated and worsening the issue at the border.
Of an immigration system that's overwhelmed. And ultimately, of millions of people living and working in the US undocumented. And many sectors of the US economy relying on these workers.
Businesses and construction sites and things of that nature as it relates to Operation Charlotte's Web, that is Customs and Border Patrol agents happening, making over 250 arrests now since they started their operation in Charlotte on Saturday. Our Miles Harris now covering this angle for us today. What's up, Miles?
Yeah, so we are kind of trying to keep a close eye on kind of the impact when it comes to the construction industry, which we know is a massive one in Charlotte, but really North Carolina as a whole. And so I got a chance to talk to a construction company owner earlier this week, really as early as yesterday, and they're seeing it. I mean, you go to construction sites all around Charlotte right now, there's like nobody on site right now.
Wow.
Even them going in and out from home to home, they have had run-ins or encounters with Border Patrol to the point where they have actually paused all of their projects.
Oh, really?
So they have put a pause on around 12 to 15 of their projects just for what they're saying the safety of their staff that have had these kind of encounters with Border Patrol. But I think that that's kind of the concern or scarce that we are hearing from these construction companies throughout Charlotte right now, which is why when we see whether it's an apartment complex or we see it's a bathroom renovation, things of that nature, we were kind of starting to see these impacts kind of trickle out. And they hope to kind of resume as early as Monday or Tuesday, but it's just tricky to tell because obviously it depends on the comfortability of their staff. And he even mentioned in the conversation that we had, the troubling part of trying to pause these projects during the time of year. I mean, this is the holiday season. There's no concerns about whether or not these people are documented, if they're legal or not. They are all legal people and staff. They do their due diligence in doing that and whatnot. It's just more of they want to do what's right and feel what they say is right and safe for their staff. And so I think what they're seeing and noticing is that like they're having trouble with their staff feeling that they can do the job as professionally or as high profile as they'd like for it to be. Without having to deal with this in the back of their head. So that's kind of what they're running into. That's kind of why they're deciding to kind of put the pause on things until they feel like, maybe staff can feel safe when going out and about into wherever community they need to be as far as doing their job. I mentioned it though too, and just to going through some of the data, I believe from one of the last North Carolina or Charlotte census statistics when it comes to Hispanics working in the construction industry, it's like over 20%. So it's a very big percentage of people that are in that field of work. And so it's understanding why there could be a concern and why there's questions. And like I said, we've seen it all over Charlotte. I mean, we live in the NODA area, and I see like construction projects, there's apartments going up left and right. But when I go on my commute to work, there's literally nobody on the site right now.
Cell phone videos captured arrests across Charlotte over the weekend, with agents pulling people from shopping centers and parking lots. Customs and Border Protection smashed the truck window of a man named Willie Aceituno, who was detained and released after he showed he is an American citizen. I told them I'm an American citizen. I'm an American citizen, he said.
They're in our yard.
Nearby, a resident shot video of agents moving in on a landscaping crew as they were putting up Christmas lights, but no arrests were made. The ICE surge in Charlotte is being led by Commander Gregory Bovino, who was also behind efforts in LA and Chicago. Bovino claimed in social media posts many of those arrested had criminal histories. The Department of Homeland Security says more than 500,000 people have been arrested and deported during enforcement operations this year. On Sunday, protesters filled the streets of uptown Charlotte to push back on the tough tactics.
It's terrifying to pretty much know that at any moment a federal agent can just come out and abuse you just because of the way you look.
I seriously believe that immigration is a civil issue. It's not criminal. So this doesn't make any sense to me.
DHS says it focused on North Carolina because of sanctuary policies that restrict cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration agents. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Let's just say finding political solutions is complicated. But Trump's approach seems easy.
I will end the illegal immigration crisis by closing our border and finishing the wall, most of which I've already built.
Well, not exactly. Currently, there are around 1,100 kilometers of completed border fencing. Much of Texas doesn't have any fences. One reason for that, the Rio Grande and the rugged terrain around the river serve as a natural barrier. Plus, a lot of the land in Texas is privately owned, and it's hard for the government to build a fence on it. Most of the fencing that does exist started with presidents before Trump. As president, Ronald Reagan signed a bill that gave roughly 3 million undocumented people in the country legal status. That was actually the last time there was a major immigration reform in the US.
But with that, it was like, okay, now we can really reinforce the border so that we don't create this problem again, right? To have the undocumented people.
That's Iracema Coronado, the director of the School of Transborder Studies. She grew up in Arizona, right at the border.
So they started to militarize the border.
That militarization was a bipartisan effort, and what happened at the border after the major turning point in recent US history, 9/11.
That changed the world. That changed the US-Mexico border, absolutely. Even though the terrorists did not come from Mexico. The United States has never been attacked that way, and the idea that other terrorists would come through the southern border to inflict harm on the United States was real.
Thank you. Please be seated.
So President George W. Bush took action.
You all are here. We have a responsibility to secure our borders.
In 2006, Bush signed the Secure Fence Act. And by the way, the act was supported by Democrats in Congress, including some familiar faces. Bush's Secure Fence Act ultimately doubled the number of Border Patrol agents. Let's head to a place called Friendship Park. It's right at the border of San Diego, California in the US and Tijuana in Mexico. Pat Nixon, the wife of Republican President Richard Nixon, opened the park in 1971 and greeted Mexicans across the border, a gesture of friendship between the two countries. This is what Friendship Park looks like today. The US side of the park is closed off with these two border fences. How did this happen? In 1993, far more undocumented immigrants were registered in the San Diego sector than in any other area along the border. There was a radical change in tone in how even average people talked about immigrants. That hasn't stopped one US president after another from spending billions of dollars on more barriers and more surveillance.
We're stuck in a repetitive pattern of failure where we make a policy that doesn't quite work, so we build a fence or a wall, and that doesn't really do anything either. So we go back and we try to pass some kind of law or make another policy, and that doesn't really do anything. So we build a wall.
Democrats and Republicans haven't been able to pass a major immigration reform since the 80s. It's not like they haven't tried. But partisan politics and election campaigns keep getting in the way. The only thing both sides seem to agree on is building more barriers. That's why the story of the US-Mexico border barrier is not over. And whoever wins the next US presidential election, he or she will probably keep building it.